All right, we are live. Welcome to the Coastal Conservative Podcast with Tim Lauer. Today, we're honored to have Congressman Barry Moore join us. As we delve into the pressing issues facing our community, it's crucial to acknowledge the pivotal role Alabama's Gulf Coast plays in the state's economy. This region is not just a cornerstone of economic activity, it's the heartbeat of vibrant small business and a robust workforce. Part of our conversation will emphasize on the Gateway Initiative, and our future workforce campus. These elements are not just economic drivers, they are the lifeblood of our community, pivotal in nurturing small business and resolving workforce challenges. Our focus will not just be on preserving, but also enhancing these initiatives for future prosperity. Let's get started. Congressman Barry Moore, thank you for taking time to join us this morning.
Hey, thank you, Tim. It's an honor to be on your show.
Absolutely. Take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a garbage man from Batten's Crossroads. I still have my CDLs. Now my health card's expired, but been running a small business for quite a few years. And the party actually approached me and running for office in 2006, but I told them no. And then in 2010, we felt we needed to engage. It seemed like there were a lot of challenges to small business owners, certainly for economic development for the state of Alabama. So in 2010, I was part of that first Republican majority since Reconstruction. So went into the state legislature and served 8 years there and had a wonderful career. And then actually endorsed Donald Trump when he came to Mobile and Lad People Stadium, August 21st, 2015. I had term limited myself. I served 8 years. I thought, well, we'll let somebody else kind of go to the plate and do what they can do for my district. And the Trump team asked us to engage and run for Congress. And so we got elected in 2020 and then been in the fight ever since, my friend.
Awesome. All right, let's dive right in. This is a two-part question. Representative Moore, considering the significant impact of the Gateway Initiative on workforce development and small business support in our region, how do you plan to further support and integrate this initiative as well as our future workforce campus?
One of the things. Sorry.
Go ahead, Tim. Additionally, what specific strategies or policies do you envision implementing to bolster the growth and success of small business in our community?
Yeah. So one of the things, Tim, I learned when I was in the state legislature, I was vice chair of small business and commerce, and we could always sell Alabama on land, labor, and climate that was conducive to economic growth, right? Because we had a wonderful climate. And I think we had, in a sense, when we came in the state legislature, Alabama was not doing so well. You know, we've been 136 years under Democrat control. So in 2010, we kind of had this wave of business owners that came in. I was one of them at the state level. And we realized that we did have land that was conducive. We had a climate that was conducive to economic growth, but the labor market was going to be our challenge. And so we were very, very active in trying to make sure that we had initiatives that could actually train students. Not everybody needs to go to a four-year college. Not everybody's going to have a white-collar degree and have $80,000 in student debt. And we realized as these industries, we helped bring Airbus here. I was vice chair of small business and commerce in a committee, actually chaired the committee that did some torque things to bring Airbus, but also Remington. We brought Remington to Alabama. We brought Polaris to Alabama. The automotive industry continued to grow in Alabama. And as these opportunities presented themselves, especially in the automotive side of things, there was a lot of technology. There was a lot of labor needs. And so there were high paying jobs as well. And so we made it a point to train and start sort of working together with the education area and the government to make sure that we were educating students in the labor force to match the needs of manufacturing and industry. And so it's one of the things we did. And I was proud of that. And look, like I said earlier, I don't know that all of us necessarily needed a white collar college degree. I got my degree from Auburn in ag science, but ended up driving a garbage truck and building a business. But one of the things that Reagan said, and I think it's important, he said the government side on the economy is when it's moving, they tax it. If it keeps moving, they regulate. When it fails, they subsidize it. And as a small business guy, I'm like, man, I was so burdened all the time with regulations and taxes. I couldn't very well create the jobs and reinvest in the industry that I was trying to build and the company I was trying to build. So there are a lot of things I think, and I think going forward, that's the key, man. Number one, the border is a huge issue. That labor market, there's going to be a ton of people coming across. We don't know who they are. They're going to be competing against our American workforce for jobs. And certainly in a lot of cases, the people that need the jobs the most are going to be competing against people who are willing to work for cash and send money back to some foreign country. And so I think securing the border, making sure that we start I think that we need to look seriously at welfare reform. I'm on ag committee right now. We're trying to figure out there should be some work requirements for SNAP. We can't just have people sitting at home drawing a check and not producing. That creates a demand and certainly inflation. So there's a lot to cover there. Sorry, I'm trying to unpack all of this, but there is a lot of things we can do to make sure Alabama still competes. And when we went in the state legislature, Alabama wasn't in the top probably 25 states in the nation. We moved it to number 5 in a short period of time.
Gotcha. Thank you for that response. As far as the workforce housing down here, we're working on an initiative for a workforce campus to instill workforce housing, background checks for people that are obviously working there so we know who they are, like you spoke about, making sure we're not bringing into it so we don't know who they are, as well as education, transportation, different things that kind of address a few different issues as far as future workforce and current workforce and the safety and security in our area. Will you continue to work with our local chambers of commerce to push this initiative forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to have housing for the workforce. Like you said, a lot of times you see that now. People coming out of college are looking for a job in a new area. They can't afford to set up a home. They can't afford to move and relocate. So I think there's always opportunity. And, Bill Poole's he's a fine secretary on finance or director of finance for Alabama. And Bill and I have talked a good bit about making sure that the state funds, because he looked at me and said, man, y'all sending us so much money from the federal government. We're not exactly sure where we need to appropriate those funds. And I told him, I said, Bill, make sure it's in infrastructure, because if we just do programs, Tim, like I know, if we just do programs, the money runs out and there's nothing to show for it at some period of time. And you got more people dependent on the program. Let's invest in infrastructure, because two of the things as a conservative, and I'm really conservative, but infrastructure and defense are two things I think as a nation you have to have. Number one, for security. Number two, to grow industries. And there's no government program like a job, my friend. So I think there has to be opportunities that we can help with housing. I think we have to work closely with the state and the money they have and the resources that we printed and sent to the state of Alabama so that we do long-term investments and not short-term programs.
Absolutely. All right, next question. During your recent visits across the county, what key issues have you found that resonate most deeply with the voters, and how do you plan to address those concerns at a legislative level to effectively meet the needs and expectations of your constituents?
So I've been in Congress for 3 years this month, and it surprised me. But after 2022, when I was out kind of touring the district, the number one concern at that time was people were afraid of their federal government and the power that it was taken from the states. And I noticed you said something about you like people who challenge the status quo in one of your posts on Facebook, and I'm like, yeah, I think we have to challenge the status quo, but the concern now is these U.S. citizens are afraid to speak out, man, if they're conservatives especially. And what happened with January 6th and those defendants, and how the government seems two-tiered. The weaponization of the Justice Department is two-tiered. If your last name's Biden, man, you can get IRS breaks to the tunes of millions of dollars. There's no investigation. And if your last name's Trump, you get arrested, your house gets raided, and you get prosecuted for just being an agent of change in D.C. So the concern I think the American citizens have is certainly the fear of the federal government and being weaponized, whether it's the IRS, whether it's the DOJ, honestly, whether it's the ATF now with these pistol braces. There are a lot of things that American citizens are afraid of. Or if you and I just speak out as conservatives, you call yourself a coastal conservative. If we speak out, you might be big tech guys might just suppress your comments or your free speech. And so, there's issues there. In addition, now certainly the border. I think I'm in the House Freedom Caucus, and when I went to D.C., I tell everybody I didn't go join the Status Quo Caucus, which you'll appreciate. I joined the House Freedom Caucus, and the very first people that brought attention to the border was the House Freedom Caucus. We went down in 2021 because Andy Biggs was chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. He's an Arizona guy, and he saw the issue that the minute we did away with the Remain in Mexico and stopped the border wall construction, the people began to flow here. And once the word got out that we were giving them cell phones at $800 a month, brother, it was like you just turned the spigot on wide open. And so we began to bring attention to that. And just this last month, 302,000 people came into this country. And Alabama, I mean, we're always talking about, we've got 5 million people. Well, that's great, but we've got 9 million that crossed in 36 months. And that 9 million people, AOC said the quiet part out loud this weekend. She said we should let them vote. Well, by golly, we've got 7 congressmen from Alabama for 5 million people. We just displaced our state twice in federal government. If they, in fact, register those people to vote, we're going to lose a voice in Washington, D.C. Those are the kind of things that keep me awake at night.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. Recently, I saw you speak at the Republican think tank meeting when you spoke. Your concerns about spending in Ukraine were clear. Moreover, you emphasized your strong support for oversight, highlighting your role in the Oversight Committee and your staff's collaboration with the Inspector General's office to ensure accountability in government agencies. With that said, a new Special Inspector General has been appointed to audit and investigate the potential misuse of funds sent to Ukraine. This position was established under the National Defense Authorization Act. However, noted with this act, you did not vote for it, in favor of it. Regarding this decision, given your express commitment to oversight, or explain, you can kind of explain this decision.
Yeah, so the NDAA was leverage we had to actually secure the U.S. southern border. That was one of the things that we said we will, and I'm a veteran. I'm the only veteran serving in the Alabama delegation, and so and I've grown up with Fort Rucker and Fort Novosel out here over the years. But my concern with the NDAA was we had some good stuff in there. The abortion tourism that had been funded by the Department of Defense, the transgender surgeries where these people come in, they get on hormones, and then they're unfit to serve, and then they have the surgeries, and then they're unfit to serve. And before you know it, the taxpayer has paid for a sex change for the transgender soldier. And by the time they're able to serve, they're out. Their 6-year commitment or 4-year commitment, whatever they signed up for, is over. And so those are good pieces. And I don't like this, the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, this woke, wasteful spending that we're seeing from the Department of Defense. And we had an opportunity to attach HR 2. I'm a Judiciary Committee, so you've seen me on the hearings with Mayorkas and Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI. And our concern was, why on earth would we not attach HR 2? Why would we not secure the U.S. southern border in this last NDAA and use that as leverage? I mean, we have a majority in the House. And unfortunately, we're governing by a majority of the minority. 160 Democrats voted for this thing and only 140 or so Republicans. So we're now allowing Pelosi's team and Schumer's team to run the House of Representatives. And so if all the 8 good things that I've supported the NDAA in July, if all 9 of the good things we'd have put in there for policy change, just for the funding, would have been left in there, if you'd attach the FISA, which is reauthorization of the Intelligence Surveillance Act that the FBI is going to use against U.S. citizens, even if you'd attach that, I'd have been a no vote. But they took out all 8 of the 9 good things and then attached FISA and didn't do anything about the border. And they said, well, we're going to pay the border agents overtime. Well, that's all fine and good. But until we actually have metrics in place like we had in HR 2, we don't really see any improvements on the border situation. And actually, we saw that. I mean, this thing passed on the 14th of December, and last month was a record month. People are still coming here by droves.
Gotcha. Follow up on that as well. In addition, I'm interested to know whether you were aware at the time of your vote against the NDAA that Senator Katie Britt had successfully included provisions for the border wall and halted the DEI and woke initiatives, which Senator Tupperville has been actively opposing. Could you share your insights on that aspect?
Yeah, to me, like I said, it was just a FISA. Even if you put a little money in there for the border wall without metrics, I mean, man, we've got money in there now for the Department of Homeland Security to secure the U.S. southern border. And instead of actually using the money with no oversight and no measurable metrics, that money can be used to bust people all over the country. That money can be used for the cell phones. There has to be serious metrics to measure. Remain in Mexico should be in the place before we fund DHS. And look, Mayorkas, you can't trust him with more money. We've proven that. You can't trust the FBI with more money. And so, even if you took the FISA out, if you just took the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that they attached to it, that allowed the FBI to spy on 278,000 American citizens without search warrants last year, even if we had attached that, if you just said, hey, we're going to send another $600 million to Ukraine, brother, we're at $115 billion since March of 2022 that we've sent to Ukraine with no oversight. And if we add, and you said something about that oversight, and it may be in there, but it's a little late now, that 115 billion. So to trust the Department of Defense and the Secretary of State with more and more money to send to Ukraine with no oversight, when we only spent 53 billion on roads and bridges in the United States of America last year, we're sending twice as much to Ukraine to secure a border over there than we're actually spending here on roads and bridges while our border is wide open. It's one thing to say, hey, this is going to do this, but without measurable metrics. And I signed a pledge this week, brother. I told him, I said, for a year, we've been in charge as Republicans. We've been bringing attention to the border. We started that 3 years ago. For a year, we've been in charge. And I said, I will shut the government down temporarily to fix the problem at the U.S. southern border because we're being invaded. And this government, this funding of this government that allows this money for all these people to travel and move to our country and move to our cities. And now even the blue cities are starting to have trouble. We have to hold the line. And so it just can't be business as usual, Tim.
I agree. Congressman, we got a debate coming up. I want to promote that real quick. January 24th at the Daphne Civic Center. You'll be debating Representative Jerry Carl. There's a meet and greet starting at 4 p.m. And then I believe the event goes, I believe the debate begins at 6 o'clock. So if you guys want tickets, just go to baldwincounty.gop.org. We're very excited about that. What topics do you look forward to talking about during the debate?
So I think just the record. I mean, we've got 3 years in office. I mean, it's terrible that they drew 2 Republicans in, and 7 of my counties are now with 2 of Jerry's. But it's terrible they did that to us. But we both have 3 years in office, and I think just certainly the border, continuing resolutions to spending like we've been spending money to Ukraine. There are a lot of issues I think that need to be addressed, and why is it that we have so much business as usual and there's not a lot of change? And I think that that's the thing that American people, and certainly in my district that I've talked to, like, you've got oversight and you've got funding. We've seen the hearings. What are y'all doing about the funding? Why are you continuing to fund this wasteful and weaponized government? And so, there's some things, but I think it's good for the people to have us, there. And look, we'll run on our record. I think that's the best thing we can do.
Absolutely. What's your message to the voters out there?
So I think that it's just, again, just check the record. I think if you look at my record, I'm the most conservative member from Alabama, but not only was our office the most most conservative, according to CPAC in 2022, we've got the highest liberty score of any congressman from Alabama. But in addition to that, we were also ranked the most effective congressional office from Alabama. So we've taken care of 4,000 cases. We've got $11 million back for veterans and helped our American, our district and people in the state that needed help with the federal government and agencies. And so, I think our record's wonderful. I think you can say we're conservative and effective. And I'm proud of my team for that. I don't take all the credit for that, Tim, because I hired people with service hearts, and they've done a good job taking care of these folks.
Awesome. Well, Barry Moore, thank you so much for being on the show today. Remember, guys, stay engaged, ask questions, continue to seek out knowledge. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you at the debate.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, signing off. Stay informed and stay conservative, guys. Thanks, Barry.
Yes, sir.